Welcome to the summary of professional tea tasting. In this video I will explain the whole process of professional tea tasting, going through all the steps that we have seen in previous videos so that you can have in short an overview about professional tea tasting. So let's get started. Hi guys, this is Gabriele from nannuoshan, where we share the pleasure of drinking and discovering genuine farm tea. And it's actually the pleasure when drinking tea that we want to enhance today using the methodologies of the professional tea tasting. If you're new in our channel and you're also looking to expand your tea knowledge and brewing skills, then make sure to click on the subscribe button. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up if at any point of time you enjoy watching. So let's get started with professional tea tasting. In this video we will go through all the information we have seen in previous videos. The first one was about the 5 basic tea tastes: sweetness, bitterness, sourness, saltiness and umami. The second one was about intensity and texture of tea, and the third one, the last one, was about taste and fragrance. Now all this information were not put in those videos in the right order that you should use when approaching a tea, when professionally approaching a tea, and we will go today over a step-by-step approach to see all of them. Actually, we will cover 11 different steps, quite a few, but you will see that they come pretty natural one after the other, and even if you forget one or two, it's not a big issue at all. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is something that actually I didn't mention, I might have forgotten mentioning it in the previous video, and is simply looking at the leaves. When you have a new tea, you want to look at the leaves and see what the leaves tell you. Today I have with me this tea. You see, it's not a classical nannuoshan bag because it's not a nannuoshan tea. This is a yencha. It's a ruishen. Now, ruishen is not a very famous cultivar for yencha. It's fairly unknown because it's very modern. If those of you that maybe have encountered this name already, so they know it maybe because they've read it on the web. So sometimes you find ruishen, sometimes you find bai ruishen. They are two different teas. It's not the same cultivar. Ruishen means winter daphne, which is a kind of flowers that comes originally from Asia, but is widespread pretty much all around the world. In Europe definitely, not so much in the US. And when you put the bai in front of it, bai ruishen, it means simply white winter daphne. So it's the winter daphne with the white petals. So they have given to this cultivar a floral name. This tea is a tea that I got from one of our suppliers. I didn't buy it from nannuoshan. I got it a little bit of those. I have 1, 2, 3 bags like this. I've got it as a present from one of our farmers. And very soon we will tell you actually how you can taste the tea of our private collection. I already mentioned that in previous videos. It will come very soon in our newsletter, so don't forget to subscribe our newsletter if you haven't done it so. There is a link in the description below, and in the newsletter we will tell you how you can have the opportunities to try all the teas that are in our private collection that we cannot offer on nannuoshan but are particularly precious, and we actually would like to offer you a way to taste them. Alright, so let's start with ruishen and let's have a look at the leaves. I will first of all bring them closer to this camera because I think you can have a better look at the leaves. Let's see if I manage that. I hope you can see the leaves. So the leaves are relatively large, even for a yencha, relatively large, and they are very clean. There is no broken leaves. So this tells me that the tea was definitely hand-picked and was also processed and transported carefully, making sure that the leaves do not break. Very important for the taste. And on top of that, I see that this definitely this typical brown color of yencha leaves, but it is a little bit paler. It has some lighter brown tones that tells me that this tea was not roasted very heavily with respect to other yencha. And by the way, I know that ruishen is a yencha, but even without looking the bag and simply looking at these, I could tell instantly that this is a rock tea. And I made a video actually on how to distinguish the leaves of Dansong and rock tea, because at the first glance they are similar, but if you know what to look at, you will be also able always to recognize a Yancha and a Dansong at the first glance. So have a look at the video if you are curious and you want also to develop that skill. Alright, so we have looked at the leaves, this was the first step, and now what we want to do, we want to smell the leaves. Oh, it's interesting. So you have noticed that I've smelled the leaves both just with the nose or also adding some breathing out on the leaf before I smell. And when I smell the leaves just like this, it's the roasting dominant. The roasting just appeared to my nose and I don't really smell much more than that. But when I breathe out on the leaves, I get also some floral compound to it. So it changes a little bit, and in between you can also neutralize your taste, your smell, or your sense of smell, especially if you taste different teas, by breathing out on the side like this, and then smell again. Or what you can do, you can breathe out of your nose, then you put your nose in your elbow, you breathe in, and you breathe out. This was a tip given by Alexandra, thank you for that, and more details there are actually in the previous video about taste and fragrance. Alright, now that we have identified how it smells, how the dry leaves smell, I put it in the gaiwan. This I don't need anymore, and what I do a quick rinse to warm up the gaiwan, to warm up the cup, and to see which other fragrances come out of the wet leaves. And in the meanwhile I warm up the water a little bit because it was not where I wanted to have. It was 86 degrees centigrade. I would like for this tea to have 90 degrees. Might sound like a small difference, 86, 90, but it's not. Alright, so now I would like to smell the wet leaves and see what comes out of that. I smell the lid first. The roasting is more faint in the lid. The floweriness is there, but only because I know that I have smelled it in the wet leaves and I'm going to search it. But what comes out more is actually... Okay, in the lid there is also some spicy note. It reminds me of... That's enough. It reminds me of Indian spices. I cannot tell you which, but Indian spices. While when I put just the gaiwan, the entire gaiwan under my nose, that's even too strong. It's very roasted. I don't smell anything else. It reminds me a little bit. It's toasty, right? It reminds me like a warm sandwich with ham and cheese that you have put in the toast. Yeah, it's very savory actually. Alright, the next step that you want to do is to smell the liquor. So I have the first rinse here, so I will just see how the tea itself smells. No roasting, no flowers, no spices. So all have disappeared a little bit, and what comes out is more of a moldy taste, smell actually. It's not moldy, it's more, it reminds me of wet wood actually. Alright, so now we should better start with our steeping. I have put, this is something I want to tell also, I've put 3 grams of leaves in a 100 milliliter gaiwan, and I will steep it now according to Gongfu Cha, as I would do if I would just taste this tea just for pleasure. There are other professionals that approach it in a different way. They would like to get everything out of the leaf, so they put water in it, usually even at 100 degrees, and they steep it for 4 or 5 minutes. I do that sometimes because you can spot more easily. It is easier to spot mistakes in the production, for example, this way, but you get a lot of bitterness out of the leaves, and it's not exactly the taste that you will have when you actually do your tea for pleasure. So I rather prefer the tea, even when I do professional tea tasting, in the same way that I prepare it for pleasure, just for the sake of drinking it. Alright, so now I do another steep, or the first one. We wait a little bit. I usually do the first steep 45 seconds for yancha, adapting it a little bit to the type of tea, but this tea I don't know, so I will do it like my standard way. And then the first thing that we will look at is, before tasting, we will look at the color of the liquor, because that can reveal also a little bit about the tea. So now I don't have a timer, I'm just guessing 45 seconds. The leaves are rolled, but not heavily rolled, like danzong are more heavily rolled, and is also rolled, I mean on the length, like twisted, and they are not rolled, so you don't need to have a first steeping longer than the next one to open the leaves, because they open relatively quickly. Okay. This cup is quite convenient because I don't need a pitcher, it's just as big as my guy one. So let's look at the color of the leaves, sorry, of the liquor. I don't know if you can see it well in the camera. It has a clear orange color. It's not red. And if I look at the rim, there is a little bit of yellow greenish on the rim. That tells me once again that this tea was not heavily roasted. And if it is very heavily roasted and oxidized, in particular the oxidation, bring out even more red tones in the liquor. Okay, and now we come to the taste. So the first thing that we want to do, and I first take a sip and then I tell you. It's very good actually. But let's forget pleasure for a second and I go back to professional tea tasting. The first thing that I want to think about is the 5 basic tastes: sweetness, bitterness, sourness, saltiness, and umami. And I ask myself which of those 5 best suit to this tea. And I go by exclusion. Sweetness, not for sure, no, this is not a sweet tea. Bitter, it's not bitter and it's also not sour. And it's not umami, it doesn't remind me of meat. So I would say it's rather salty, yeah, which is a strange association with tea, but I think it's the right one of the 5, is the best for this one. And it's saltiness, not because it's very salty, but because it has, it is a savory tea, yeah, and so savory saltiness is kind of associated. The next step that we want to look at is we want to look at intensity and texture. And you might remember from the second video, and if you haven't seen it, here there is a link, you can go ahead and have a look at that, that for intensity and texture we have provided a list of adjectives that go from light to strong, so that you can use them to assess better on a scale which is the intensity and the texture of this tea. You want to start with the intensity because this is the easier one, and I take the I have here my iPad with the scale, and I will tell this scale of adjective that you see now here on this side for intensity. And this is not the light and delicate tea, so all in all I would say it is substantial. Substantial is the best description of it, because it is definitely substantial and full, actually even full in your mouth, but everything more than that, like bold and heavy, that's not, yeah. Maybe also because of this light roastiness. And concerning the texture, So here the adjective for the texture. Concerning the texture, I would rather say crisp mineral. So everything less than crisp mineral would be a too watery description for this tea. And more than that is also not the case. Maybe, yeah, you could tell it is viscose because it is really thick in the mouth, but it's definitely not oily. So it's very clean in the mouth. So we have now intensity, substantial, and we have texture. What we say texture, crisp mineral, maybe a little bit viscose. And the next thing that we want to look at is the taste. Finally, we go to the taste. And for the taste, the first question that you ask yourself is it fruity? Is it floral? Is it nutty? Very easy, just 3, and you select one. That would be to select one. If I have to force myself and select one, I would pick up the floral. But those people that drink just this tea and expect a very floral tea would be disappointed because it is a rock tea. It has these mineralities, this roasting on top of it. But it's not really fruity, and it's also definitely not nutty. So I pick the flowery. And then you want to go deeper into it, and to go deeper, you have seen in the previous video, we've been discussing using the tea aroma wheel. So I have here a tea aroma wheel also on my iPad that you see on the screen, and I will use it. It is the one from the International Tea Masters Association that I've selected, and as you see, it goes from the inside out. So I start from the very center and then I move farther on the side, and I very quickly go through the wheel and try to get a feeling of what the tea tastes like. A little bit systematic, basically. So floral, we say yes, it's definitely a floral tea. I cannot tell you which flower, but yeah, it's floral. Plants, no, it's not an herbaceous, it's not grassy, not at all. Earthy, let me rotate this wheel. Yeah, it is earthy. I told you before that the liquor was smelling like wet wood. But even more than that, when you taste it, you have a kind of, how can I describe that? It is a fresh, sharp wood note. It reminds me the sharp smell of cedar, if you know that. Cedar has a very distinct and very fresh and sharp smell. It reminds me that. Mineral for sure, stone minerality, a lot of stone minerality in this tea. Marine is not marine. Fresh or candied fruit, no. Spicy, yes, that's spicy. I told you before, the Indian spices, and that's interesting for me because I wasn't expecting it from the name. Ruixiang Winter Daphne is a flowery name. And usually dansong that are flowery are not at the same time spicy. You have, for example, rogui, typical spicy yancha, and you have many other yancha that are more floral. So this one has the florality and has also a little bit of the spicy notes. I told you before, Indian spices. I don't know Indian spices that well. I cannot really pick up one. The closest I can get is cinnamon, but yeah, so not precisely that. What else? Far animal? No far animal in it. Sweet? Yeah, it is a little bit sweet. Yeah, but very little, not much. I wouldn't really pick up that one as a main criteria. Nutty milk is not. So we've gone through the whole wheel very quickly from the inside, so all around, and then from the in out. And this helps you to focalize on different aspects and to get the whole picture of the tea. And sometimes you want to do association that go over that, you know, you don't want to stick too much about the systematic approach. I mentioned before that when I smell, what was that? The wet leaves, I think. When I smell the wet leaves, yeah, the wet leaves in the Guy one reminded me of a toasted sandwich with ham and cheese. You won't find ham and cheese in that tea wheel, aroma wheel, but you want to recall those associations. And actually there is one thing that that I want to tell you is that you want to search those associations in your childhood. At least for me, it helps a lot. I like to look back often in my childhood and which were the smell and the taste and the experiences that remain more into my brain, and I tend a lot of time to associate tea with those experiences. And it's not necessarily something that is edible. It could be just the association with an experience or with something. I think in the previous video I mentioned the smell of bark or the taste of bark from the trees. So if you've done a lot of walking in the forest when you were a child, you might remember the smell of the undergrowth, and you never tasted really a bark, but you can still make the association with it. So what we say that now whole the approach about the taste. One thing more that you want to look at is the aftertaste. So after you have been sipping the tea for a little while, you want to analyze how much of the taste remains in your mouth. And you want to see if it is intense, the aftertaste, and if it lasts for very long. And this one has definitely an intense aftertaste, it's very strong, but it won't last very long. In fact, now I had to sip it again just to recall to myself how was the taste. But as soon as you put in your mouth and you swallow, it remains a very intense taste in your mouth, particularly on the top part of the palate, but then disappear relatively quickly. And what else? We say that the taste, we say the aftertaste, right. Then another important thing that you want to look at is the effect on your body. You want to see if the tea is warming or cooling, if it is exciting or relaxing, or any other reaction that your body has. So in this case, it's definitely a warming tea. It's really a winter tea to me. Yeah, it's not mean that I don't drink yencha in summer, but the roastiness, even if it is light, it makes him very wintry. Yeah, and I cannot tell if it is exciting or relaxing, but definitely not exciting. It's kind of neutral, you know. It doesn't bring me down. It doesn't bring me up. Keep me there. So now we have seen a lot of different points in this video, and you want at the very end to give a whole picture, to recall about how you would describe the tea if you have to put all these different aspects in one pot and read it. So I would say this one, the first word I would say, it is a savory tea. Yeah, I say at the beginning saltiness. Yeah, it is a savory tea with very substantial, full in your mouth, and it's not still. It's quite in movement. Yeah, in your mouth it has this minerality. It feels a little bit like dancing in your mouth. Not super smooth because of this movement and because of the fullness of it. And it has a very clear roasting note that is not too dominant, no, though, because they come also other tastes into play. Tastes like, for example, the floral aspect that we have mentioned and the stone minerality, and on top of that also these fresh, sharp cedar notes that I mentioned before that made this tea a little bit woody. This was my professional approach to this cup. You want to do professional tea tasting to enhance your capability of distinguishing taste, so that when you do a tea for yourself just for pleasure, you will enjoy it even more, because your brain is tuned to make this association, and through association you create enjoyment for your tea session. Thank you very much for watching. Give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't done it yet. I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much, and bye bye.